Dr. Kumar Prabhas, can you hear this? You're not audible, Dr. Kumar. Dr. Kumar, you are not audible, please. Atul, would you like to check with him?
He is not audible, sir.
Yeah, ask him to
Yeah.
unmute maybe.
Okay.
He was very much there. I just saw him.
No, he is there. I think he's having some trouble in setting up the. I think he's changing his laptop.
We can have some more question answers if till that time if you have for any of the speakers.
So, I think. So one of the questions which we can ask Alok was, how do you decide on reconstructive option in a vessel depleted neck in a patient who has underwent surgery and post-op artery for the first tumor? Obviously, a PMMC would have been done. So, what would you? You have a recurrent disease, something like Dr. Shah said. The PMMC is already used or a microvascular is already been used, so it is vessel depleted. You have a recurrence there. What do you do now? What do you do pre-COVID? What do you do post-COVID?
So again, the recommendation is cut it widely. If the neck needs to be addressed, you need to address the neck. Coming to the reconstruction, it depends. You have to kind of see what you have available. So if you have, if you have a PMMC done earlier, and you don't have any local regional option, then in that case, probably you'll have to go for a free flap. If you have a free flap done here and you have an option flap, if you have exhausted both options, like you have had a giving a hypothetical situation, you have exhausted both vessel for reconstruction as well as pect major, then in that case, probably you'll need a vein graft with a second free flap.
So Alok, one of the options which I gave everybody was, this is a question which was already there in the background, was that if a PMMC has already been done, you can't use a PMMC, use an opposite PMMC, especially if it's in a buccal mucosa, it may be a little difficult, but if it's for a mandible or a floor mouth, a PMMC from the opposite side works. As I said, this is post-COVID. I've also used an LD flap for these patients. And of course, the best is obviously an ALT. So there's no question. Whether, so in the pre-COVID era, if the, and we have done a paper on this, if there is a vessel depleted neck, we can even use the carotid and the IJV. But if not, a good large ALT, we can also use the opposite neck. And that the pedicle stretches to that amount without doing a vein graft. I don't think that's
correct. So if you have a defect, say in floor of mouth or in the midline, it's easy for opposite PMMC to reach. But suppose you have to reach to the upper alveolus on the other side, then it becomes a little challenge. So
I use an LD in such circumstances.
Correct. So the important thing is you need to have all the tools in your armamentarium, and then you apply depending on what the situation is. So nothing is off the table.
Dr. Shah, one question.
Even a folded forehead. It's
even a folded forehead, if it is higher up in the face, correct. It doesn't look good at all, but if it needs to be done,
when you're back to the wall, yeah.
Correct.
Dr. Shah,
an orocutaneous fistula.
A question for you, Dr. Shah. When you get a second primary tumor or a recurrent tumor on the same side, what are the chances of getting a nodal positivity on the contralateral side? You need to unmute. You need to unmute your mic.
1 minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Yeah. So I don't think we have good data on that, because I don't think many times we go on the other side. But I would say it is probably in the lower numbers. We don't see many recurrent tumors on the other side unless the initial primary was large, it was crossing the midline, or there was bulky disease on one side. And that's the same question that we were discussing before, that if there is a bulky disease on one side of the concern, then or the tumor is already crossing the midline, I would go on the other side and do a selective node dissection.
Sorry.
So the argument is, if the ipsilateral neck is dissected and maybe if the patient is radiated, the lymphatics are the aberrant lymphatics form, and there may be a spread on the contralateral side.
Yeah, again, we're going to go back to the imaging. If all the imaging is negative, the risk of microscopic cancer, I would say about less than 20%. That's why we developed that number, 20% as a gospel number. So I would say that, and that's part of the reason I would do something.
Is Kumar on?
Kumar is on. So in the meanwhile, sir, a follow up on the same thing that we are talking about is, so many times you've seen a neck and post-irradiated. These are occipital nodes, and you don't know what to do with that. So with using the same corollary, could you look at doing a opposite neck? Because in India we don't have such good follow-up. So we look at opposite neck for two things. One is that treating this primary, you want to look at opposite neck because it's a recurrent primary post-RT and the normal channels are blocked. And also, if you need to do, as I said, this is off the you need to do a flap for the side. And if it's going to be a vessel depleted neck out here, maybe you can use this vessels out here. So that's the reason why.
Absolutely.
Devendra asked this question, and so that's why
I agree with that. I think that is very appropriate. We're going to open the other neck. There is a concern. By the way, occipital nodes from squamous cell carcinoma of the head and neck is a bad sign. Number one, that is very rare.
Absolutely.
Number two, these are truly aberrant. Occipital nodes are very common in the scalp tumors, melanoma, etc. But for squamous cell carcinoma, you're going to see only a handful in your career. And those are going to be very bad. You do the best surgical procedure. This is the time I would definitely go on the other side. I think Dr. Kumar is on.
Dr. Kumar, you are ready? Are you ready, Dr. Kumar?
Am I audible? So can I have my slides?
Sure.
So good evening, everyone. And I thank the organizers for having me for this nice program. And I heard two wonderful lectures. They were very informative and very useful in our clinic in management. So what my role has been today is to talk about NACT, and that is neoadjuvant chemotherapy and metronomic chemotherapy in COVID era in head and neck cancer for our patients, and how it is going to be useful. And I'll take some liberty for level of evidence, and as was by other speakers, and it was important to understand that for every situation we won't have a level 1 evidence. But let's see what we can, that whatever data we have, how we can use in our clinic in today's time, especially in COVID time when many times the resources are not optimal. Next slide, please. Anyone interested? This was the one of those things we did when COVID started in India. We got together and we tried to see what kind of data is available in head and neck cancer in specific situations, and then try to see that which are those things which can be alternative implementation in this situation in case those routine treatment is not possible to deliver. Anyone interested? You are most welcome to. This is an open journal, and one can download it and read it, and we'll be happy to have their feedback. But as was told by Dr. Shah, that these guidelines keep changing. They change by day, they change by weeks. So sure, this is not cast in stone, but we're good to have the feedback from the people. Next slide. Starting with neoadjuvant chemotherapy, we know that we use them in organ preservation. Second, making those technically and borderline resectable patient resectable, primarily for oral cavity cancer. Sometimes we do use in unresectable tumors. Sometimes, and especially this becomes important in our this era, those resectable tumors which we want to operate, but we are not able to operate because OT is not being available, because staffs are not enough. Do we have data that if those things get delayed, what happens to those patients? And can we intervene in way or some way to see that yes, we are able to deliver those treatment if they are getting delayed in delayed subsequently, and which is optimal. And last one, it does add life to the patient in certain scenario. Next slide. This is organ preservation. I do concede in majority of the time we do use chemoradiation as an organ preservation protocol if we have to use it. Just I wanted to highlight the NCCN guideline. Remember, that is not the only option. If you take the level of evidence for option, the concurrent chemoradiation has got a similar category 2A recommendation as we have for induction chemotherapy, that is neoadjuvant chemotherapy. In case there is a concern, and which is a concern for chemoradiation, we do have a higher toxicity for chemoradiation when we add chemotherapy, especially 3-weekly cisplatin to radiotherapy. Remember, another way of preserving the organ is induction chemotherapy and followed by RT. Don't add chemotherapy during that time. Outcome of these patients in hypopharyngeal cancer and laryngeal cancer will be similar. This is representative slide for hypopharynx and larynx, but if you see the subsites of larynx, this is the similar recommendation in NCCN. So if you want, you can use it NACT in this situation to have lesser toxicity when you want to deliver radiation, especially when you want to add chemoradiation to these patients. Next slide. Now, if we have to use it in organ preservation, which drug to use in induction chemotherapy? So we do know if you want to preserve more organ, it appears that 3 drugs, that is docetaxel, 5-FU, and cisplatin, leads to almost 14% more organ preservation as compared to having 2 drug combination chemotherapy. But we need to remember that that's added toxicity. In case bed is the issue, in case toxicity is a concern, which is a real concern when using TPF, and outcome of the patient as far as overall survival is concerned, it is similar for 2 drug combination chemotherapy. I again add overall survival is similar. So if you are using 2 drug combination chemotherapy, number of patients you will be able to preserve, have organ preservation will be a bit lesser. That will be around 13-14% lesser, but survival will be similar. So one can have this alternative. We have used in quite a bit of a patient weekly paper some time back, and it appears in advanced disease because we didn't use in COVID era. We used in the patients who were not fit for 3-weekly combination chemotherapy, and it appears that you will be able to preserve organ in almost 65% of these patients. Highlighting, which will be easier on the patient. It is not so toxic. I won't say it is without toxicity, but it will be lesser toxic than 3-drug combination chemotherapy or 3-weekly chemotherapy regimen in these patients. So you want to preserve organ, select those patients after NACT for radiotherapy or for surgery if they are non-responder, 3-drug combination chemotherapy or 3-weekly, or if that is a concern, weekly platinum plus cisplatin plus paclitaxel or carboplatin plus paclitaxel weekly may give you similar result. Next slide, please. Coming to technically unresectable oral cavity cancer, this is something which we have been doing for quite some time, and now we do have some around 15 odd plus paper on this on various situations. We did define which are those tumors which we consider technically unresectable or borderline resectable, and this is just a representative slide. That tumor going up to zygoma, tongue tumor going to up to hyoid, tongue tumor involving vallicula, and buccal mucosa tumor going to high ITF. And this is what we consider technically unresectable. Next slide. And what we know that if we do this, then almost half the patient will be able to resect. And if we do resect those half patient, they do have around 2 years survival of around 50% odd. If you don't resect, which is not be possible if they don't have a response, then the median survival is 8 months. What it suggests that these are very aggressive tumor. If you want to preserve these patients having some life, and some of them having a longer life, then it is important that we don't delay treatment, it will intervene so that they don't become totally unresectable. And if they totally become unresectable, we know that the treatment will be palliative. Next slide, please. Again, coming back in this situation, what kind of drugs we'll be using? Drug option remains the same. And again, I'll repeat here, if for us, the preference remains weekly paclitaxel and platinum. And again, in this situation, we have published a paper on weekly paclitaxel plus carboplatinum in borderline or technically unresectable patient. And what it suggests that maybe we are making similar number of patients resectable after the surgery, for the surgery, as compared to 3 weekly combination chemotherapy. There is a metronomic chemotherapy. We have used it, and good. I also saw that AIMS have used this approach in large tumor like technically unresectable or borderline unresectable tumor. And it appears that these are easy on patient. Most of the patient can take it. Cost is less, and again, you convert good number of patients who are by and large unresectable to resectable. But I again repeat, these are not upfront totally unresectable. These are borderline unresectable patients. So in COVID era, you do have at least 2 choices: either weekly platinum plus paclitaxel, or you do have metronomic chemotherapy, which will be easy on patient, and that will not add much toxicity to those patients if it is given to these patients. Next slide, please. Coming to resectable oral cavity cancer, and what we should be, if do we have option or to use those NACT in certain situation. And one of the trial done by Dr. Chowkar, together, we and Dr. Chowkar did together, was to preserve the mandible. And second is, which I'll be coming to and showing you the slide. And next one is to, what do we do to bridge the delay in surgery? And this is a real problem. Coming to the first one, next slide, please. This year ASCO, we have this paper of upfront surgery for patients where you have a paramandibular disease. Mandible is not involved in CT scan, which required segmental mandibulectomy for upfront surgery versus giving NACT followed by a surgery in these patients, and which will be presented as poster discussion. And I'll request people to hear it and give your comment. Next slide, please. If we have this approach, then yes, you do bridge that gap, what you are having for your surgery in these patients, and you are able to preserve almost half the patient mandible. And that is important, that if you are having a patient where you have to remove the segment of mandible, paramandibular disease, but mandible not involved, then this approach may help you preserving the mandible in half the patient. Next slide, please. This is a very important study which we did together with Dr. Sudhir Nair. He is our surgical oncologist, and he did a phase 2 randomized trial comparing various metronomic chemotherapy regimen and compared to nothing. An idea was to understand what is the impact on the responses and to see the biomarker studies. But what it did also, that it gave us many information regarding what happens to these patients when there is a waiting time. Because the patients who were included were in patients who had anyway around 3 to 4 weeks waiting time, because that's the waiting time for the patient who undergoes surgery at Tata Memorial Hospital. Next slide, please. This was presented in ASCO last year. And what I wanted to highlight and to focus on, that in a patient where no treatment was given, there was a delay in surgery by at least 3 weeks, 2/3 of the patient had a progressive disease. In the patients where metronomic chemotherapy was given, then in those patients, almost no patients, had any progressive disease. What it highlights in today's situation, this was a phase 2 trial. There is a plan to do a phase 3 trial, but this information becomes important in today's time, that if you have your patient where the surgery is getting delayed for 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, you have an option of giving them some treatment, which is not so toxic, not so costly, but brings your patient in a similar stage as they were today, so that you will be able to do surgery on them after 4 weeks or 5 weeks of treatment. Next slide, please. Coming to advanced head and neck cancer, here the treatment intent remains palliative. Next slide. What we know that in this situation, this is our work which suggested that 1/3 patient wants only symptomatic relief, 1/3 wants prolongation of life, and 1/3 wants both, suggesting that almost 2/3 of the patient, they want some symptomatic improvement. Next slide. We know this paper, cetuximab adds life to the patient. Only 3 to 4% can afford in India. Next slide. We also know that, next slide, please. We also know that immunotherapy adds lives to the patient, but again, only 3 to 4% of the patient can afford it. And again, we always have a question that in today's time, when you have a paucity of bed, when you have a concern regarding toxicity, should we be using these 3 drug combination in this setting or not? And yes, this concern remains. What we have done in this setting is we again develop a low cost and less toxic treatment for our patients. Go ahead, next slide. We talked about bit about metronomic chemotherapy. Next slide, please. What we did was a randomized trial. This was a phase 2 randomized trial comparing IV chemotherapy versus oral metronomic chemotherapy in palliative setting for head and neck cancer. Next slide. What it showed that it controls the disease better. Next slide. What it also shows that it adds small, but it does add life to the patient. Next slide. He also showed that it also adds quality of life to the patient in certain segment, suggesting that in at least phase 2 trial, it adds a value to the patient. Not only in COVID era, based on this data, because this is the only data in palliative setting for head and neck cancer for chemotherapy. I'm not talking cetuximab or immunotherapy, for chemotherapy, which showed that it adds life to the patient. We have been using this in big number of patients in our clinic. Next slide, please. And anyone interested further, we subsequently did a phase 3 study, which has been submitted to ASCO this time. It has been selected as an oral presentation. And I request everybody, if anyone interested, now the abstract is out, you can visit it. And the phase 3 trial also, it showed the similar result, that it is around 400 plus patient study, and showing that it controls the disease better than IV chemotherapy. It increases life little, but it does add life to the patient. So in a patient where you don't want to give, or you're not able to give cetuximab, you're not able to give immunotherapy, and you are planning to give IV chemotherapy, you have an easier option of giving oral tablet to the patient, which you can do in the clinic, in the OPD basis, and it will not occupy your bed, or it will not occupy your extra or big extra resource. It will occupy some of the resource for your patients. Next slide, please. Coming to platinum refractory tumor, we all know that in palliative setting, a big number of patients becomes platinum refractory. Today, the standard treatment is immunotherapy. Again, only 2 to 3% can take it. Go ahead, next slide. We had this paper in JCO, where we chose only platinum refractory patient and tried to develop a metronomic chemotherapy of 3 drugs. That is erlotinib, celecoxib, and methotrexate. And this we developed with doing a phase 1 trial to get optimal dose for our patients. So we did a phase 1 study, then subsequently tried to get the optimal dose for these combination, and then we did the phase 2 study. What it showed, 4 out of 10 patients response to the treatment. And they have, go ahead, next slide. If you see the quality of life diagram from the same paper in the JCO, almost 2/3 of the patient had some symptomatic benefit with this treatment. And that is in a very bad tumor, which is platinum refractory, where the median survival remains 2 to 3 months in these patients. And next slide, please. So in conclusion, what I can say is that NACT and metronomic chemotherapy may be used in multiple situations in head and neck cancer patient, especially in COVID era. This may help in optimal care of your patients. Next slide. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I'll be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar. That was an excellent talk. Before I open the session for questions, I would like to just need your views, because despite you have shown a compelling evidence for metronomic chemotherapy, I am a big fan of metronomic chemotherapy in head and neck cancers. We have been doing it at AIIMS for the last 4 years. And you have a number of publications. I must congratulate you. But despite so much of evidence coming from India, why it is not being practiced widely by medical oncologists? It had the advantage of logistics, cost, it can be taken at home, there's less pressure on hospitals, and we have a big number of head and neck cancer patients with advanced cancers.
Sir, I know you can ask any of your surgical oncology colleague who works in TMH. Out of 10 patients, 6 or 7, they receive metronomic chemotherapy in palliative setting in our clinic.
Yeah.
When I talk to my students who have been passing out for last 10 years, and I get a feedback, I can't vouch for all medical oncologists,
Yeah.
and I get a feedback that majority of them, they do use in some setting or other, The phase 3 data has come just now, and my feeling is that will have a bit more impact because people did have a concern because of phase 2 data. So hopefully once after the ASCO, we will have a more discussion. People will be more convinced about it. But in our practice, again, I'll say you can talk to any of our surgeon colleague. We have 11 of and we use in 6 to 7 out of 10 we use metronomic chemotherapy.
Thank you, Dr. Darishit. Yes.
So I think I can add to what Kumar is saying. It's not only in TMH but across the country. A metronomic is coming in a big way. We are all faced with the problem not just of delay in surgery. That's
Yes.
one aspect Kumar looked at, which was probably a different aspect. But we are also facing a problem with recurrent disease, which we are operated
Yes.
post RT, post. What do you do? And these are the patients, which I think SVS, you agree with us. I think even Topra will agree that these are the patients that we are seeing. We should put them on metronomic. If you don't have anything to offer, what do you say? What do you feel, SVS?
Yeah, absolutely. I am fully convinced. We have been practicing for the last 5 years. I am using the same protocol Dr. Banawali and Dr. Kumar Prabhas are using. We use the methotrexate and celecoxib, and we are surprised to even CRs, complete responders in our patients who are waiting for surgery. There's a handful of patients.
Use erlotinib. You see the response. You see the response to erlotinib.
Yeah, Dr. Toprani.
You're the only medical oncologist in this panel.
Yes.
But I'm telling you, we are surgeons. We feel that it's giving such a huge contribution to what our patients' results are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Dr. Toprani.
Yeah, thank you. So
Yeah.
I have one question for you, Kumar. So in this COVID era particularly, there are some borderline resectable patients. Obviously, we would have treated with neoadjuvant chemotherapy otherwise. But when you plan neoadjuvant chemotherapy now in this COVID era, my first question is, do you do their RT-PCR testing or any other antibody test or something before you start neoadjuvant chemotherapy? And if you plan to give neoadjuvant chemotherapy, is there a detrimental effect if it turn out to be positive? Is there a severe complication in those patients? Have you seen that? Or what is your observation?
So can I answer, Kumar, before you go in? I
Go ahead,
think
sir.
we have been using this neoadjuvant in the last 2-3 months for our patients, and I don't think and we are doing COVID testing for all these patients who come in for chemotherapy. And the interval between 2 COVID testing is, we have kept it at 1 month because it otherwise becomes very difficult for patients to think. The only thing what we are not doing in chemotherapy probably is immunotherapy, and that's something which was discussed yesterday in another meeting. But apart from that, I think, Kumar, whatever chemotherapy you guys are doing, we are all good with it.
Dr. Kumar, please.
Yeah. So, sir, what you said regarding borderline resectable. So, as a policy, somehow in TMH we have a policy decisions. So, at this moment, asymptomatic patients, we are not doing COVID testing. But this debate is raging a lot that what we should be doing, then how frequently it should be. There is a huge concern considering in Mumbai the kind of number of cases we have. But at this moment, we are not doing it. But before surgery, we are doing it. Now, I'll say we have, I'll request anyone, you can please read our papers on NACT in borderline resectable patient. We have a whole lot of paper for margins, for surgical complications. Yes, we do have a paper on surgical complications after NACT comparing to per primum surgery in T4 tumors. It doesn't look like it adds to the complication post-operatively. So it looks like it's safe. As far as the post-NACT surgery in COVID era, we do keep a track of our patient who with the surgical colleagues are operating at this moment. Doesn't look like, as told by Dr. Shravan, that it adds complication to the patients when the surgery is being done in this COVID era also. But I need to concede that we need to keep our eyes open to see, because this is a new problem for us, and we will learn as the time goes by.
Let me ask you in a different way. So if you have
Please, sir.
asymptomatic patient with a borderline resectable oral cancer, and if you do an RT-PCR, if it turns out to be positive, so he's an asymptomatic carrier, would
Yes,
you
sir.
then go ahead with neoadjuvant chemotherapy?
No, sir, I won't, sir. I totally agree with you. And this is the discussion we have day in and day out. But somehow the policy decision at the hospital remains that for chemotherapy patient at this moment, we are not doing it. And your question is absolutely valid. It's the same question which was discussed. I don't have a full answer to it, but I won't be giving. I will be waiting till it becomes negative. Yeah.
Dr. Atul, then we'll go for few participants have few questions. I would like to give them an
Yes.
opportunity.
There are two
Yes.
questions. If you are not giving NSCT, should they receive the metronomic therapy if they are COVID positive, like Jeftinib or the Arlotinib only, or the combination with methotrexate? And second, what is your experience with the Jeftinib instead of Arlotinib in the metronomic combination?
Okay. So remember, this is something I will like to convey. Don't take the way you don't take surgery everywhere is the same. Don't take systemic therapy, all systemic therapy everywhere being the same. So one needs to be careful which kind of evidence you have. Oral cavity cancer, I am good with it. But if you say for laryngeal cancer, if you want to use metronomic chemotherapy in neoadjuvant setting, I'll be a bit concerned. We need to have 20 patient, 30 patient, 50 patient data to say that. There's a good option of weekly platinum plus carboplatin. That's what we use it. So for every situation, oral cavity doesn't respond as good as chemotherapy as compared to nasopharynx or oropharynx. So we know that head and neck cancer for systemic therapy is not the same. So we need to be a bit careful about it. I totally concede in oral cavity cancer, borderline resectable or surgery getting delayed, treating with metronomic is a very good idea in this setting. It does help you in delaying if your treatment gets delayed, or if you're not able to use IV chemotherapy. What was your second question? I did miss it.
Jeftinib versus Arlotinib, because Jeftinib is a cheaper option.
Okay, so we have never developed Jeftinib in this place. Again, I need to emphasize Jeftinib. Remember, sometimes we loosely compare cisplatinum and carboplatin. They are all platinum. No, they are not. They are different drugs. Jeftinib, Arlotinib, in places like lung cancer, EGFR mutation positive, they are similar. There is a good study. Oral cavity cancer, we have tried many things. We don't have a formal data on Jeftinib, but I can say we were a bit disappointed, and that's why we chose Arlotinib and we developed Arlotinib for our phase 2 trial. With Arlotinib, we were very comfortable, and that's the reason we have developed it. So what we will try to convey, prefer Arlotinib. I can't say because data is not there, it's not working, but our experience were a bit subdued as far as Jeftinib is concerned.
Yeah, I think we'll just take few participants' questions, Dr. Kumar.
Yes.
One question is from Dr. Rudresh Tabali. He is asking what is the role of NSCT in downstaging for oral cavity, extending into high ITF.
ITF.
Yeah.
So high ITF, what I'll say, when you have a high ITF tumor, please try to divide them in at least two groups. One is that, is the skull base involved or not? Is the pterygomaxillary fissure involved or not? If they are involved, whatever you do, you will not be able to resect those patients unless you are doing hemifacial. We have seen some once in a while people doing it, but my advice will be, or my suggestion will be, whenever I have seen, doesn't look good. Yes, if you have a high ITF above sigmoid notch, but it is not involving base of skull and pterygomaxillary fissure. These are the patients where you give NACT, then 4 or 5 out of 10 patients, you will have a good response where you will be able to resect them. So again, I'll say high ITF is not one bunch. When we have analyzed the data, we have realized divide them in these two parts to decide your treatment and to choose those patients for NACT.
Thank you. So we have one more question from Dr. Rajendra. He is asking, is there any role of metronomic therapy in resected patients, T4, PT4, who is not able to get radiation? Can we offer them metronomic chemotherapy as a mitigating strategy, sort of?
Sir, there is a bit of a conflict for me here. We did do a study there. There is data to it. I'm privy to it. We are reporting to IEC. My only comment will be careful. And that's the reason I said in the beginning, the way surgery has a different connotation, different situation, drugs has a different connotation in different situation. And I'll give you an example. Jeftinib works very well in stage 4 lung cancer. Given stage 2, there is something happens. So here I can't say the data because the group has, we are just reporting to IEC at this moment. But we might have got a sense of it. We have used it. We have used it many times. We have used it in selected patients. But drugs does something. Different situation. Use in prevention, it doesn't work.
Right.
That's
so
what's told by Dr.
Yeah, we have Dr.
careful.
Devendra with us. Dr. Devendra?
Yes, Devendra.
He has a question. Is there any increase in complications post chemotherapy? I think you have already answered that.
Devendra, you can ask me in JC.
Okay. So I think we have one more question from Dr. Naresh. What will you do if tumor is having complete CR with metronomic therapy and patient denies surgery?
Okay. I wish Prathamesh and Devendra was there to answer this question. And this is one, somehow in this situation, oncologists, we are more convinced that surgery should be done. So we are after our surgeons. Now there's a complete response. You don't see anything CT scan. You don't see anything mucosally. And our surgical colleague says, hey, where are we are going to operate? And we say, hey, no, remove. We want surgery to be part of the armamentarium in oral cavity. Somehow it has to be there. And we struggle it. So we have done all kinds of things. This data we are analyzing because now we have given almost 4,000 plus patients in NACT. So we have some decent number of patients with complete responses, and we are analyzing the data, what we have done and what is the outcome. We somehow want that surgery should be part of that armamentarium. Somehow we don't have something like breast cancer where you can put a wire and you can go back and operate. Somehow, we have not been able to do that at this moment. But we want, if you're any duration, anything there, we request our surgical colleagues to operate.
Yeah, Professor, Dr. Dharishi. Yes.
Yes, sir.
So Kumar, going forward on what you have said, would you envisage anything where if you don't see a primary tumor, it may happen in tongue, it may happen in maybe some parts of buccal mucosa, that we don't need to operate? But do you think that, or do you think that we need to operate all that? We don't look at habergama in rectum, we don't look at breast, and we just in head and neck. Anyway, we need to, we surgeons are not, I'm not saying redundant in the true sense, but we have to go in.
Sir, let me tell you the data. So one bad news is that only 2 to 3% patient has these kind of situations. So if you give 100 patient, in 2 or 3 you will land up in this situation. So it is relatively very uncommon. We may not have a definitive answer, but seeing the oral cavity cancer, and I can tell you, I learned head and neck cancer management once I have joined TMH and sitting with my surgical oncologist and radiation oncologist colleague. Oral cavity cancer, you need to have surgery somewhere, a part of it. People did try it in Michigan to see that to remove surgery as a part of the treatment, and the result was pretty bad. No, we should be very cautious. We should be very cautious. And what we can see in our data also, if you give NACT, unless they go for surgery, your outcome is not good. Your outcome is not.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Kumar. Message is very clear. Any comments from Dr. Shah regarding metronomic chemotherapy, sir? Your views?
No, it was a very Prince and Kumar has done a good job. You have got big numbers presentation, so I appreciate it. I would like to thank all the organizers. I think this is a highly educational symposium, and appreciate organizing these educational sessions. I think it's even in COVID era we can promote our science.
Thank you, sir.
Can Devendra come in?
Devendra is there.
Devendra is here. Hi, Devendra.
Hi.
Hi,
Devendra, I've been looking for you.
Yes.
I have some problem with connection.
Okay.
Okay. So Dr. Devendra, can you tell about your paper on metronomic therapy, which is going to be published in ASCO?
But it's not on metronomic actually, it's on organ preservation in oral cancer. So it was a simple study where we gave neoadjuvant chemotherapy for paramandibular disease. You know, we have patients who have large paramandibular disease without the both being actually involved, where we have to do segmental mandibulectomy, and free fibula may not be available everywhere. So what we did was we gave NACT to 34 patients, and 34 we operated upfront segmental dissections. What we observed, those whom we gave NACT, we saved 16 mandibles, so around 48% of the mandibles we saved. We could do a marginal resection. The response rate was great, about 80%, so 75 to 80% partial and total response. So 16 mandibles we could save, and more importantly, now it's more than 5 years follow-up. There was no difference in margin positivity rate between the segmental and the marginal resections. So the fear in the surgeon's mind that if you operate as per new margins, you may get high incidence of margin positivity. But we didn't see that. neither there was any difference in the disease-free or the overall survival. Telling us that NACT is safe and you can operate as per new margins. So this will be presented at this ASCO, and then hopefully we'll have it published simultaneously.
This was only
And two questions.
Yes.
Sorry, one question that came up was, is the complication rate higher? No, it is not higher. We operated this, all 34 patients, all 30 patients that we operated. We did not see any increased complication rates in these patients. And they have a smooth post-op course, and they withstood post-operative CTRT as well. So looks to be a feasible option. Now we have started the phase 3, not started, but we've cleared the ethics for a phase 3. So I invite anybody, and I will send out the invitations to all of you all. Those who want to participate in the phase 3, me and Kumar are going to make it multicentric. So please participate in the phase 3 NACT, and we can probably change guidelines.
So
Thank you,
Devendra.
Devendra.
Devendra, while you are there, can I ask you a question about how do you treat? We started the COVID era in India just 1 month back. So
Right.
in the beginning, was there a philosophy of delaying surgery and even referring patients who are resectable and operable to neoadjuvant chemotherapy upfront?
No, it was the reverse actually. We started, when we started off, we started doing the early cancers where there was not much blood loss because blood availability was also a problem. So what we started doing was we started operating the T1, T2 tongues, and we started doing the thyroids because they would eventually clog the waiting list when we opened up for routine surgery. So though thyroid was not an emergency, operated those, so they cleared our waiting list. And we deferred surgery initially for the T4 tongues, and we sent them for neoadjuvant chemotherapy so as to either hold them or downstage them. So now when we have started getting more theaters and we operate those cases, either which are downstage or held on with neoadjuvant. So our philosophy was different. We started early cases first, and now we take up those cases who are now coming with post neoadjuvant therapy.
Thank you, Devendra. I think we are running short of time. I would like to hand over it back to Dr. Atul. Thank you, Dr. Kumar. Atul, are you going to have some virtual dinner?
Yes, sir. We can have a virtual dinner along with the drinks.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kumar and Dr.
Thank you.
Dev, for the informative and excellent presentation. And I think this will help all us youngsters and the practicing oncologists to have some change in practice. And now to conclude the session, I would like to invite our secretary, Dr. Sarath Desai, for vote of thanks.